What's up, St. Philip family? Yesterday we celebrated the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, but in New Orleans we sometimes like to call him a sissy. No, let's give him his name back. He was not a sissy. He was one of the most powerful saints of all time. So we need to start at St. Philip Neri. We are going to start this movement in New Orleans that he is going to be a sissy, not a sissy, a sissy, St. Francis of Assisi. So let's talk about St. Francis. At his time, around the year 1200, there was great confusion all over the world. There was incredible upheaval politically. There's a lot of corruption, scandal in government and in the church all over the place. And there was a lack of faith in the people, that the pews were getting empty, that people weren't coming to church, people weren't practicing their faith. They had lost hope, they had lost faith. Now, I know that picture is really hard to comprehend. We could never possibly imagine a world like that, where there's confusion and chaos everywhere, where there's corruption in government, where there's a lack of faith of the people and trying to get people back to church. Can't imagine that, but try. So this is what Francis was up against. And then early 20s, so remember, Francis, wealthy family, textile father, had all the comforts of the world. Everything was given to him. But he had an encounter with Christ, and he said, I don't want any of this. So he completely detached and let go of everything that was his and sought to follow Jesus. And he's praying before a crucifix in this broken chapel, the San Damiano chapel. The roof is caved in, the walls are broken, it's all crumbling, and he's praying in front of this crucifix, and Jesus speaks to him from the cross. And Jesus says, Francis, come and rebuild my church. Come and repair my church, which, as you can see, is in ruins. Francis, come and rebuild my church, which, as you can see, is in ruins. And so Francis heard Jesus and responded to that call. And so he rebuilt that little chapel, which was in ruins. He put up the walls, he put up the roof, he repaired, he restructured the chapel. And that, brothers and sisters, that building of the chapel was actually a sign, a visible sign of the incredible mission that Francis was going to have. That he was not only going to be rebuilding a chapel for the Lord, but he was going to be rebuilding his church, the body of Christ, by going out, itinerancy, going out, taking nothing, living this life of poverty, but fiery preaching. He would go from town to town to town, fiery preaching, calling more and more people to follow him in his way. He had like 5,000 friars in just a few years that would follow him, but also communicating to every person this mystery of the gospel, the love of God, and calling people to conversion, calling people back to God. And so now that little chapel is still in Assisi, not Assisi. If you try to find the chapel in Assisi, you'll never find it. It's in Assisi. So you go to Assisi, and the little chapel that Francis built is now housed inside of a glorious basilica. They built a basilica around this little chapel. And what the basilica manifests and makes visible is the glory of God and the extraordinary, the immensity of Francis's mission to build, reclaim, to rebuild the church that Jesus had founded, the body of Christ, to rebuild the church. And so this basilica is a visible sign of the magnanimity of Francis and that mission, and also the majesty of God, that through this man, Francis, communicated his gospel to so many and converted so many souls brought to Francis. And so that church manifests the glory that was once started in that little chapel, the Portiuncula, and is now in Assisi. So brothers and sisters, we are in a very similar time. There is a great confusion all around us. We don't know who to trust. There's great confusion and corruption in politics, in governance, even we've seen it within church structure, right? We've seen a lot of corruption, a lot of scandal. We've seen a lot of problems. There's a lot of confusion. And there can be, in many people, a lack of hope and lack of faith. And we can speak like the gospel says, Lord, increase our faith. We don't know what to do. What is happening? Where are you? Increase our faith. You know, I love the apostles. They're amazing. They're amazing because they're so simple and so weak. You know why they were asking Jesus to increase their faith? Well, if we rewind a little bit, what Jesus had just asked them to do was to forgive. They asked the question, right? How many times do I need to forgive? Can I just do it 7 times and then I'll be good and then I can go my merry way? He's like, no, 70 times, 7 times. You have to forgive every time. And they said, I can't do that. Lord, increase our faith. I can't possibly forgive this guy anymore. They just keep doing it over and over and over again. I can't do it again. Lord, increase our faith. Love the apostles. So grateful for them because I'm just like them. How does Jesus respond to that? It's very interesting. Jesus does not respond. He doesn't say, oh, I love that request. Here's some more faith. Here you go. I love that prayer. Here's more faith. No, he says, if you even had faith the size of a mustard seed, if you even had the scraps of faith, and you commanded this mulberry tree to be uprooted and planted in the sea, it would obey you. What is he saying? He's saying, instead of asking me to increase your faith and asking for me for a handout, basically, how do we increase our faith? We make acts of faith. That even if I have a little mustard seed of faith and I act in faith and I act in trust of God, this is how my faith can increase. So when we are asking God, where are you? When we are desperate and confused and in the darkness, what is he asking us to do? To take steps to walk by faith, to walk as if, to trust in him for all things. That's how our faith can increase. And he even goes on with the servant parable saying, no, you're just doing what you're told to do. Just keep doing it. And you will have your reward. You will increase in faith. But be faithful to what you're being asked to do. Be obedient. Be a servant. And you'll see what happens. Make acts of faith. And brothers and sisters, here at St. Philip Neri, in this year, in this time, in this parish, with these people, we as a parish family are making a giant act of faith, a giant step in trust. That in the midst of this darkness and chaos, in the midst of the confusion, in the midst of the brokenness of the world, in the midst of all the difficulties that we face, in the midst of all this, we are making an incredible act of faith, and we are going to build and renovate our church to be glorious for God. In the midst of all the brokenness in the world, we are showing the world that we are putting God first, that we're giving the best to Jesus, that we are loving God above all things, that we are bringing the glory of God visibly alive in our parish church. This is an act of faith, and we get to be a part of it. I talked to you about this 2 years ago. That was when I said talked about all the things that were happening, and then I said, we're going to open up heaven on the ceiling. We're going to paint heaven on the ceiling. And then 2 years went by, and I had to replace one roof, another roof, other projects, other things breaking, one thing at a time. Crazy. They never told me in seminary that I would have to be a roofer. And I still am not a roofer. I still have so much to learn. But wow, we put on some roofs at St. Philip. Amazing. But now the roofs are on. They're secure. They're tight. We're good to go. And you might have noticed if you came to church this weekend to St. Philip, you might have seen that the statues of saints in our little alcoves around the church, they're missing. I promise they weren't raptured up. We have them. They're in the rectory, actually. And Father James Martin Nobles, he said it's like the Acropolis in here. We have the statues lined up in the foyer. I kind of like it. It's nice. My big fat Greek wedding, So we have the statues in here. Why? Because we're finally about to redo the subsurface drainage and fill the church. The Monday after Fam Jam, so just about a week from now, that Monday, you will see sand trucks on campus, and they were pumping under the church, pumping under the sidewalks, filling all those voids. Then we're gonna have another company that comes in, redo all the subsurface drainage, put in some landscaping in those alcoves, and then we are going to have a sure foundation. It's gonna be ready to go, and we can finally begin this beautification process, this renovation. And the best way, brothers and sisters, for me to explain this renovation, the vision of this renovation, is if you can imagine, if you're in the church, if you imagine the church, where is the most intentional and beautiful space in our entire church? Think about that. Where's the most intentional and most beautiful space in our entire church? The answer is at the tabernacle. So if you look at the area where the tabernacle is, there's the glorious, beautiful gold wall. There's angels adorning the tabernacle. They're holding candles. This space, and there's even mosaic gold around the gold wall. It is so intentional. It is so set apart. It is so beautiful. And why? Because God is present there. That is where God dwells in the midst of his church. That is where Jesus is. Body, blood, soul, and divinity. The eternal God is right there. And so we do everything we can to make that visible. And Monsignor Kinney, our founding pastor, he did that. The whole history of our parish was actually a history of Eucharistic excellence. That in the very beginning, we were trying to find a fitting place for the Lord, kind of like King David, right? Like, man, the Lord's in a tent and I'm in this house of cedar. I need to build a temple for him. So this is the history of our parish. That's why it's from tent to temple, that we finally built a temple for the Lord. And now in that temple, we have the most beautiful space, this tabernacle area where God is. So intentional, so beautiful, because we love the Lord and we're Eucharistically excellent at this parish. But brothers and sisters, my friends, we need to rescue the Lord from that bathroom. Oh man, we need to rescue him. All Mass long, Jesus listens to flushing, and he sees these lines that form right next to him, because even though it's a beautiful space, it's right along the thoroughfare. So what happens? People walk right past Jesus and he's like, hey, I'm right here. Hey, look, the gold wall, look at me. But people keep walking past. We have to rescue Jesus. We need to rescue Jesus. And so, brothers and sisters of St. Philip Neri, St. Philip family, we are rescuing Jesus, and we're going to take him from that space and place him in the sanctuary, in the middle of the church, in the center of all things, so that no one ever has their back to him. Everyone is always facing him, and he is the center and the focus of our hearts, of our life, of our church. He is in the sanctuary. But because he's in the sanctuary, we need to do the same thing that Monsignor Kinney did over by the tabernacle. We need to make sure it looks like God is there, that this is the most intentional, most beautiful place in the whole church, because this is where God is present. God is dwelling. And so what we will do is we're going to take up that shag carpeting. We're going to put down marble flooring, beautiful marble flooring, like the glassy sea that we see in Revelation, in the visions of heaven, the glassy sea. We're going to we're making a new ambo and a new altar, beautiful, white and gold, glorious, highlighting that God is present here. We're going to have a baldacchino. It's a fun word to spell and a fun word to say. And baldacchinos have been used throughout history. And it's a 4-pillar structure with a housing over the top. And what those signify is they say something very special, very significant is right here. They focus all of our attention, no matter what. You could be in a giant crowd of many people, and there's one baldacchino that's over the most sacred space, the most important place, and all of our attention is then drawn to that place. The baldacchino says, do not look around, look right here. This is the space where God is present. This is the space where the wedding feast of the Lamb takes place. This is the space where the sacrifice of Jesus takes place. And so it is a frame, it is an adornment, and it's a focal point for our whole church to focus in on Jesus present right there in the sanctuary. And because Jesus is God, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist, God, and wherever God is, all of heaven is present. So wherever Jesus is truly present, all of heaven is there with him. And so to signify that, we are going to open heaven above him, above the sanctuary. We have angels and saints in worship of the Lord. Saints who are our spiritual friends, saints who instruct us, who teach us how to worship and show us the way. And in the centerpiece, the very center, it will be a beautiful image, painted image, a giant image of Jesus Christ ascended in triumph. We'll see Jesus there blessing us in the ascension, constantly blessing us. And we see his cross to the side because he has conquered the cross. And this is an image of hope that both the saints have worshiped and adored, and they're being drawn up into that. And we too are being drawn up into that no matter what we are facing outside the doors of the church, no matter what our cross is, Jesus has conquered the cross. And so it fills us with hope. So brothers and sisters, we are rescuing Jesus. We're placing him in the sanctuary, and we're making the sanctuary look like he is present there, heaven visibly alive. the area where the tabernacle is currently, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add more bathrooms. So we'll have a total of 3 bathrooms. We've needed that for a while, and I know that's been a big request, so we'll be taking care of that. And what we will be able to do is we're going to take the gold wall, that beautiful gold wall, and we're able to remove it. We figured this out. We're able to remove it, and we're going to place it, superimpose it on the blue marble in the baptismal font. So we'll still have the blue marble, but this will now be the backing, so that baptismal area will then be closed in with some windows, and that will be a devotional space, a devotional chapel where we can have additional adoration, which is what our people love the Eucharist, and they've been asking for that for so long. So that'll be a devotional chapel where we can celebrate and focus on adoration in there. It'll have the beautiful gold backing and the blue marble to honor the Lord in that space as well. And so, brothers and sisters, this is such an exciting way for us to love Jesus, to show our love for Jesus, that this beautiful structure that we're making is not just a gift to Jesus, but it's a sign to the world of our love for him, of the glory and the transcendence of God visible in our church. And there's something else that I'm so my heart's burning up about, is this. Today is also Respect Life Sunday. Every human person created by God, from conception to natural death, given a dignity from God that they cannot remove. And brothers and sisters, we have so many human beings in this world who do not know their dignity, who think they are not worth the dignity of God. They've either lost it, they've disqualified it, they lost hope, they're despairing, they're depressed, they're oppressed by darkness, they're poor, they have nothing, they're down on their luck, all these different things, all these different conditions that lead them to feel less than. And if they only knew the love of God, if we were able to treat them well, if they weren't so poorly treated by their fellow human beings and lied to by them, if they only knew that, they would be lifted up and they could live different lives to know the merciful love of Jesus Christ for them. And so here is my dream, Philip Neary. Here is my dream, and my prayer is that in making our church even more beautiful, by highlighting the presence of Jesus and making heaven visibly alive in our church, everyone who walks through the door of our church, especially those who are the most broken, those who are poor, those who have nothing, those who are so depressed and so darkened that they can walk through the door of our church and they can find that they are at home here. This is their home. They belong, and they see heaven. They see the glory of God. They see Jesus Christ triumphant, who has conquered whatever it is they're facing already. And they can be in that moment filled with hope. In this Jubilee year of hope, filled with hope, lifted up, given the hope of heaven to continue moving forward and persevering, knowing that this life is not the end, but that there's something glorious waiting for us, something that we worship every time we come to Mass, someone we worship who loves us and calls us to himself. St. Philip Neary, this is an amazing time for us as a parish. I am so excited to begin this campaign with you. And this is the beautiful gift, is that I'm inviting you. We're being invited into this mission. This is our time. This is our gift. And there are many other things that have been built in the past, but now our opportunity, our generation can build this part of the church, and it will be here for generations. So please look at our website, spnparish.net/dream. Check out the campaign materials. We have booklets. If you didn't get one, stop by the office. We have plenty. We'd love for you to have one. Look through the materials, check it out, and ask Jesus, how are you inviting me and my family to participate in this mission? How are you inviting us to contribute? And whatever you are invited to, whatever the Lord is speaking to you, then make an act of faith. Make an act of faith. Make an act of trust. Give your heart, not just a financial contribution, but give your heart to the Lord and know that he will multiply whatever it is that you offer, and you will know forever that you were a part of making the glory of God visible and present, of bringing hope to the hopeless, and of saving souls. Brothers and sisters, souls are on the line, and souls will be saved because they see the glory of God made manifest before them, and they will then turn to a deeper belief, a deeper faith. Brothers and sisters, please join me in this mission. I'm so excited to build this dream together. Let's do this.